Good afternoon, our dear viewers. My name is Gloria Tricia Nabaye. I'm a research associate at the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. I want to welcome you to our 14th episode of the Women's Show here on Civic Space TV. I'll be your moderator for today, and our conversation will be anchored in understanding the impact of closing NGOs and the challenges of shrinking civic space on women organizing and participating. My goal today is to help us understand how do we move forward, how do we plan better, but most importantly, how does a women's movement organize for the future? And so in the realities of such a space that is shrinking and with regulations that are bound to, curtail organizing, we want to dissect this conversation. And on my panel today, I want to introduce the wonderful ladies that have joined me to have this conversation. Mrs. Eliot Orizaarwa is the Executive Director, Women and Girl Child Development Association, and she will join us today on this conversation. Welcome, Eliot.
Oh, thank you so much. Do you want to see me? I'm here. Thank you so much. I'm in
right
the
there.
field.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Eliot. And then we have Aijuka, who is an author, a YouTuber of the Standout series. Welcome, Aijuka.
It is a pleasure, and I am very happy to be here. I cannot wait to discuss matters that generally concern us as women, and of course, the elephant in the room. Very happy to be here.
Yes. And joining us from Akina Mama wa Africa is a feminist in every right, Ms. Jean Ngobi. Welcome, Jean, to this episode.
Thank you so much, Tricia and the colleagues. I'm so excited to join a team of very brilliant women of Uganda, discussing and having a conversation on how we can create a better working space for us. Thank you.
Yes, so I want to give a little bit of introduction to the conversation we are having today. On February 17th, 2021, the government suspended the Democratic Governance Facility in Uganda, a European Union donor fund for non-governmental groups. And the argument was that government lacked oversight over the fund. And later, on December 22, 2020, police arrested Nicholas Opio, the director of Chapter 4 Uganda, whose activities have also been banned in the recent letter from the NGO Bureau. And he was later charged with money laundering, and the authorities accused him of receiving $340,000 US on behalf of the organization, and they didn't know where the proceeds were coming from. Chapter 4 argues that the funds were part of a routine grant it had been receiving for years towards its human rights work in Uganda. Fast forward in 2019, the authorities stopped CIVIC, Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, from monitoring the elections that we had in January 2020. And also CIVIC is one of among the other organizations whose activities have been banned by the NGO Bureau. So the Uganda authorities on 2020 August announced without prior notification that they had halted the activities of 54 civil society groups, including human rights and election monitoring organizations. And I want to believe that some of these organizations are also women's organizing groups, for the likes of UNET, who had its accounts frozen last year. We want to look at these patterns of shrinking civic space and see how it's affecting us as women. So against this backdrop, we will have this conversation on how these actions of the Bureau affect us in the as a movement and also as we organize. My first question will go to Eliot. And it's just to help us, what do you make of the recent actions of the NGO Bureau in relation to civic engagement and organizing, specifically for us as a women's movement?
Tracy, you did not signal to me. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I must apologize that I am traveling, but I will try to speak to the listeners And I really want you to take me to the points that you want me to share, because I may speak until tomorrow.
My question was, what do you make of the recent actions of the NGO Bureau in relation to civic engagement and women organizing?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. My name is Eliot Orizaarwa. I am one of the founder members of Women and Girl Child Development Association, and I coordinate the Coalition on Girls Empowerment. And I'm happy to inform you that I am the chairperson, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, and the chairperson, International Association of Facilitators. I just wanted to connect to you, but the main thing, as a person that has been in civil society and a person that has been working with women, first of all, I think it was a shock. And the shock that shocked us, we thought that there were 2 organizations, 3, but then to find that 54 organizations are closed, then it meant a lot to the minds of women. And not only the women that work, the women that we call those at the point of engaging with the local women, but those at the national level, first of all. The time that these organizations were closed is the time when we're engaging with the local council women, with the Uganda Women's Network, as a civil society still working for women. And this one was hard to answer. Why is it that government is closing? So it is, the reason why I used the word shock is because it shocks you as a leader that leads the, then it shocks even the people that you connect with, the people you tell, the people you show that you can amplify their voices. Secondly, something that I think also was a shock is the time that I was asked to reach 25 women organizations by a donor, by Urgent Action Fund. And the time we're asking them, please apply. And they were like, but is it possible that we can do work? If let's say we are given money, are we going to work? Because the government seems to have closed the organizations. So it's something that shocked us and then shocked the donors, because it takes us to understand that the issue of holding our values as leaders of women's organizations should also go to the women that we work with. They don't seem to believe in us. They don't seem to believe in our values if the government is not believing in us. So it was something that was hard. Then the reason again that I used it as a shock is when you compare the number of girls that are getting pregnant during this COVID, and you can't move, and the organization that are helping us to maybe to on social media, let's say the youth center with Kaviri, and then you hear that it's closed. And then you hear that the constitutional governance is closed. So it became a very difficult space for us. And I think this is not going to take a short time. I shouldn't declare this, I'm not God, but people will not respect us unless, yes, government comes out to say it is true, these organizations had not really complied with the government. And then maybe even us going back to tell them, no, look here, it was not us, but it is because of government. So again, it is going to become hard. It is something that the young girls should come out, the youth should come out to start really talking. For me, I am still a little bit scared, because one of our donors was like, how is your organization? Have you been informed? What if they close you? So the shrinking space is affecting us so much. And as I told you before that I lead a team for International Association of Facilitators, where we engage with more than 100 facilitators in the whole world. It was a very big question and a very big blow to us when they were like, Eliot, are you still engaging with the community? Are you still bringing out issues that really are supposed to be influenced? Are the policymakers still interested in you, because it seems civil society in Uganda and mainly the women organizing is hard. I don't know, Tracy, should I stop here or I continue speaking?
Maybe to pause there and let me invite Evelyn into this conversation. Okay. Eliot says something that has been, relatively felt by other people, that different organizations are still scared. And the realities of work has been affected because organizations that were actively working are now stopped. And I want to pick your brain on, there are different organizations that are doing private negotiations with the NGO Bureau to establish themselves back into active work. So, but what does that mean for the future of accountability if different organizations, are negotiating privately as opposed to having a collective pushback on the bad law? And what does it mean for us in effective organizing if we have, portions of people doing different things for a collective problem?
Okay, thank you so much, Tricia. I hope I'm very clear and very, very loud. I really hope I am audible enough. Well, good afternoon, viewers. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Evelyn-Author, and I am an author, Standout. If you haven't checked it out, you have all the series on YouTube. Just check them out. You should be able to see. And my book, it champions the girl child. It champions the young people. It basically looks forward to bridging the gap and helping the younger generation into closing that gap into adulthood. Now, back to the discussion that we are having. It's quite unfortunate that this has happened. But I would want us to look at it in maybe a broader perspective. The fact that we have got attention of the regulators, of the NGO Bureau, it should already show us that we are doing something. It should already show that the NGOs have their boots on the ground. They are doing something and that they are being recognized. Okay. As to whether they're being recognized for the good or the bad, that's also another question for another day. But they are being recognized. Now, as the women, as the younger people, as the females in this space that could, in the recent past, have been, shrinked, not to our liking, we can only look out to harness the opportunities therein. We have their attention right now because if they are shrinking our space, they know that there's already impact being done on the ground, and we cannot ignore the good things that are happening, because most of these organizations, you mentioned so many. You mentioned, and I'll basically just speak about maybe UNIT that deals with women, since this is a discussion for women. They've done an amazing job, and everybody, I am very sure, even the ED NGO Bureau agrees that they have done an amazing job. So we cannot distance ourselves from the good things that they have done. They have reached out. They have been a voice to the voiceless. They have brought out issues to the attention of the nation. You have seen campaigns that have maybe saved a life because one NGO brought it to the attention of the media, and then media to the public, and before you know it, somebody or lives are changed for good. So we cannot ignore the impact or the good works. But also it's important to get back to the drawing board, because this is a country that has laws, that has rules, and basically rules of engagement. Where have we gone wrong? Have we really gone wrong? If we could answer that question, have we gone wrong? What are they requiring of us? They're saying the closure is because some operating without permits, they're not filing returns. Those who are companies are operating under guarantees, and they're not registering, they're not licensed to carry out the work that they're doing. Can we sit back and do our due diligence as the NGOs operating in this land? If there's any paperwork that we need to clear, can we clear it? Because what we are doing is indispensable. I agree with Miss Eliot. She mentioned the good works that they're doing, but we cannot we can't even delay it for a moment. So if there's anything, any paperwork, anything that we need to do, let's do our due diligence on our part. Then when we have cleaned our house, we can come and bring them to book. We can say, okay, now what do you do? What else do you need from us? This is us. We are an open book. We have done this. We have cleaned our house. Or if you need any documentation, here it is. Okay. Then we now can say, okay, if we have done our due diligence and they are still shrinking our space, which we badly need, by the way, because the effects of the pandemic have been really crazy. Tricia, you've seen the young women, you have seen the young girls that are exchanging sex for sanitary pads in Kasese. That was a very terrible story. You have seen a story, I think I saw it in the Daily Monitor, of children that are pregnant just within a district. I swear to you, they could fill this whole entire pitch. And those are terrible statistics, and that is terrible precedence for the future. So we cannot delay our works. We cannot delay the community outreaches, because they make an impact, and now more than ever they know. So whatever they demand of us, whatever they think we need to do, provided it is what we think. Because if they're saying license permits, do we have permits? If they are saying we're not filing returns, okay, maybe for those that are companies, that lie within that. If they're saying we're not registered, can we do our due diligence? And if they're saying that if we have cleaned our house, then we can bring them to books. And I want to call out everybody there. You asked that. I want to call everybody out there. It's not just the women. It's not just the youth. It's not just people in NGOs. It's everyone generally concerned. I want to call everybody that, on Twitter, on social media. Let it be a movement, because as long as they can just turn the plug off and turn it on as they please, then we are not safe. Then the young girls, their future is not secured. Then the women who are actually, some of them really, really dealing with issues of the now times, are not safe. Even the men out there. I saw a report recently. The men are grappling with domestic violence. So generally, all of us need a voice of hope. And I would want to appeal to the NGO Bureau and the partners or the players that are governments and the line ministries. Let them not look at NGOs as a threat. NGOs present alternative thinking. NGOs do research that even government sometimes doesn't do. NGOs documents, okay? Yes, they have development partners that help them maybe in a few activities here and there, but they disseminate even this information that they get. Whether it is positive or negative, it is shining a light for the government. It is shining a light for all of us to shape our next policy agenda. So if only we can embrace them, the NGOs, and understand the gaps that we may need to work with them, partner with them, and work with them, not as a threat, but look at them as an alternative thought. In fact, if it were me, I would invite the NGOs, their EDs, their team leaders, and ask them, what do you think we can do about this? Because some of them have these reports, they have done this research. They have amazing publications on their website. Ask them for alternative thoughts. Ask CCG, for example, it's a constitutional watchdog. Ask them what you think are the alternative policies. Now that we're talking about women, gender mainstreaming, these are all things that NGOs have actually taken keen interest, because we realize they're categorized. The women will go for the women. If it's an NGO for children, they have enough data on the children and their target group. If it's an NGO for men, they have quite a bank of data that we can use, even government. So I call upon every player to look at them as partners rather than perhaps threats. And also, if there are NGOs that are doing the money laundering that they mentioned, and perhaps to be patriotic enough to do what is expected of them and live by what they usually put on their papers when they're registering. I thank you for now. I'll just mute and hear from the rest. Thank you so much, Trish.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. And you spoke very key issues that I realized. One, due diligence for us as organizations. And I want to emphasize that us here at CIVIC Space TV, we do not condone people that do not follow the law. So we value people that, work within the provisions of the law. And you also spoke of, the fact that government has the ability to turn the plug on and off as and when they please. And it is very important for us to understand how we, then plan alternatively. And that is why I want to bring in Jean in an effort for us to build to build resilience and to help us, plan better. The Bureau has requested that the aggrieved organizations should seek redress in the courts of law. So do you think, in your view, do you think seeking redress in the courts of law for these organizations will provide justice in the absence of, a committee as the adjudicating committee that should be provided for by the NGO Bureau? Do you think the courts of law are, the channel where these organizations can seek redress? Jean, you can unmute and respond to that. I think we lost Jean. I don't know if she's online. Maybe let me first pause and introduce Charity. Charity, you're welcome to this conversation. Charity is the Executive Director for Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, albeit also one of the organizations in question of the 54 that have had a suspension in their work. We are hoping for better, but I want to say welcome, Charity, to this conversation.
I am back, Tricia. I am sorry I had dropped off a little bit, but for purposes of making my path into the discussion, I introduce myself once again as Jean Ngobi. I'm working with Akina Mama Africa, and I'm so excited really to represent my ED, Eunice Musime. Akina Mama Africa is a Pan-African leadership organization. We anchor our work in feminist principles as enshrined in the African Charter of Feminist Principles. Now, making my inroad into this very important discussion, Akina Mama Africa basically is committed and remains committed to safeguard human rights for women and gender expansive persons and other marginalized groups of people. So we remain committed to the good goal of ensuring that there is good governance, accountability, and equitable spaces for people to operate in their work. So I think it is also very important for us to know where we are coming from as the women's movement, as women's rights organizations. It is important to understand that in the recent past, us as women's rights organization or the general civic space in Uganda has been rated locally and internationally by human rights observers as being repressed. But also, it is important for us to note that it is closed for others who are allowed to speak. But I mean, it is repressed for others who are allowed to speak, but very closed for people who are not allowed to speak out. For example, gender expansive persons and sexual minorities and other marginalized people in the community. So for us, it is an interesting conversation this afternoon that we tend to bring out those key issues that are actually suppressing the civic space for the minorities and for all people of Uganda, and specifically the women's rights organizations. So recently we carried out a study as Akina Mama Africa and our partner, the Netherlands Institute for Democratic Governance in Uganda, and yes, it was realized that the civic space continues to be shrinking. So what does this mean for us as women's rights organizers, as people who are strengthening and widening space for people to enjoy their rights, for the women and girls who are passing through a lot of repression, who are being exploited, whose rights are violated day in, day out? It means that then, if the space continues to be shrinking, if the space continues to be narrowing, then it is likely going to happen that Uganda's development is not going to be equitable. It will mean that women and girls will continue to be exploited and suffer and walk through a lot of violations. It will mean that development as economy is not going to be able to be achieved. Therefore, with this unprecedented attack on NGOs and specifically the women as well, because I remember even when it is noted that from the 13,000 organizations that were registered, only 2,230 NGOs were validated, amongst which were women's rights organizations, yes. And not only that, women's rights defenders have been arrested. We operate in a space that is not free for us. We are operating in a space where we feel, even in spaces which would be response spaces for us, for example, in courts of law, there is no justice. I just want to pick a small example where recently Mr. Christopher Gashabarike, who is numerously accused of professional and sexual misconduct, was again rewarded to become a judge at the Court of Appeal. So in such a space where law is not absolute, we speak about laws, but in actual sense, we don't put our laws in practice. In a situation where we are seeing women's rights organizations' accounts are being frozen, where we are seeing activists being arrested, where we are seeing a lot of sabotage on our work, yet we locate our way to operate as partners in the development sphere, just like government is, because it is very important for us to first of all understand why NGOs operate and what roles NGOs are playing in this country. There are several circumstances where government is not able to reach out in communities, and NGOs are doing that part in education, in health sector, in the governance sector, to do civic education, enlighten masses so that they can be able to support government policies and work closely with government to ensure the rule of law and constitutionalism and good governance, yes. And again, government falls short to understand and appreciate the role and function of NGOs, to thinking they're part of the opposition, they're part of foreign agents who are here to spy on government.
I think we lost Jean. She'll join in later. I would want to, I think on that backdrop that Jean has provided for us, bring in Charity. Charity, welcome to this conversation. And my key issue is in the effort for us to build scenarios for the future, in the presence of the continued shrinking civic space, what is the future for organizing? Jean speaks of the obsoleteness of the courts of law, the fact that there is no justice in the courts of law. So, looking at that, what is the future of organizing for the women's movement in Uganda, especially in the presence of, a continued shrinking civic space? Where do we build from here on?
Muted. Hi, Gloria. Hi, Gloria. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Charity.
Okay, and I hope everybody there can hear me. I'm excited to be here and to be holding this governance conversation on the shrinking civic space, and especially the conversation around how women, how we can organize even when the space continues to narrow. Definitely, it is a challenge that the space has continued to narrow, and that women usually do not like operating in spaces that are uncomfortable for them to participate in governance in itself, because they don't find a reason to fight and flex about issues that affect them. They want to express those issues. They want to be heard about those issues without necessarily fighting to be heard, because they are affected by these circumstances on a daily basis. We're talking about girls getting pregnant during the lockdown, and it is a big issue that has skyrocketed. It is an issue that is happening. These girls did not choose to get pregnant. They are teenage girls with hormonal issues on them and no guidance for them. And here they are, and the NGOs want to support them to still find their footsteps, to go back, get a skill or go back to school, but you're blocking them because you're closing them down, because you're suspecting them, because you're witch hunting them. And so the women who want to help fellow women are asking the massive question, do you want to give up on supporting your sister to walk along with you just because somebody is witch hunting you? And I think that the bigger conversation now in terms of organizing is that it's not going to be business as usual. It is going to be more innovative. We're going to have to think largely outside the box. That when you close my office, I don't need to work just inside my office space. I can be on cloud right now, and we're out here and we're having a conversation. My CIVIC office is closed, but we're out here and people can hear us. How do we get the young girls who do not have smartphones to loop into these conversations? Who do we contact within the communities to understand that there is a conversation happening to strengthen these people to pick up a skill and to go back and to have hope that it's not the end of the world because they carried a pregnancy or because a man stabbed a woman. You know, yesterday I saw on the news, a man stabbed a woman in the Masaka Lodge. So the issues of violence are still real for women. And so when we talk about them, when we sensitize women on these issues, they affect them on a daily basis. They are governance issues that the people in policy and the people that are governing are not paying attention to the small little things that affect society. And so how do we reach out to these people that are actually in pain and yet we're being blocked? So we will have to be innovative, like I am saying. We'll have to find people in those spaces who have smartphones and can help us link as many women as possible to our open conversations that are happening on cloud, that are happening on Zoom, that are happening on Twitter. We'll have to set up more blogs for women who can influence other women. And the blogs should happen at community level. We should have serious bloggers that come in from community level to update us on what is happening, what is the status. And that is how the movement is going to be built. That's how the organization is going to have to happen, because right now to have an address is already a security threat. To comply itself is also a threat in itself, because you try to comply, but the steps which the regulator is supposed to follow, he doesn't follow them. The regulator is supposed to warn you if you have consistently not complied. He's supposed to reach out to you because that's the only way he looks like he's supporting you. But what does he do? He goes to name and shame, like as if it is so true that these things they are saying have actually existed about you, because they want to pull you down. And so we also need to be aware that as we organize, we will always be pulled down. We shall find stumbling blocks, but we must be resilient to go on. Nelson Mandela did not give up. 27 years behind bars, he was locked up. They heaped all kinds of things on him. JF Kennedy, look at all the people who have been in these movements. It is not going to be a simple job. So every time you find a blockade, and I think the challenge is thrown now to the women to understand that resilience is built from within. We should not give up. If you have a genuine cause, and which it is, in organizing for ourselves, for women to be part of these conversations, to be part of participation. If you look at the numbers, the women were the majority voters. The women are in various spaces to manage. But how many of those voices are being heard in those spaces? Go back to the district and the councillors. See how many women actually stand to talk about policy, to talk about governance, to talk about the issues that are affecting the community, and straight to the family level. The voices are fewer. How do we multiply those voices? How do we empower people at that level to begin to speak out, and we expose them. So we begin to capture our fellow women who are putting out good policies at community level, at parish level, and bring them to the national scene, that they are also hard on how we reorganize, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Charity. And you raise key issues. One of those issues that speaks out is the fact that issues of women don't stop. The challenges that women in the grassroots and within Uganda are facing are not stopping. And that is why I want to bring in Eliot, because Eliot is, active on ground on seeing what happens, how are women, organizing, and are they getting the needs for the issues that, show up in their areas of residence. Eliot, so with these realities, Charity speaks of, the fact that to comply is also a threat itself, and then how we need to be innovative in making sure we continue to, to advance and to build and to organize. I want to understand from your perspective, especially because you work with women and girls, how are you going to plan outside the organizations that have been actively pushing with you? How are you going to, create a manpower that will help you continue to bring, pads to these girls, to continue to talk and raise awareness on issues of teen pregnancies, early childhood education, all these issues that affect women? How are you going to continue to organize to make sure these services are not stopped because particular organizations that are pushing for them have been stopped or halted? Eliot?
Thank you so much, Charity. Thank you so much, Tracy. It takes me back to where Charity is coming from on the issue of complying. There are issues that we may not need to comply. We are not going to continue complying on what is happening in terms of girls getting pregnant every day. We are not going to continue saying we are complying when we see women are being beaten every day and they are thrown out. We are not going to continue keeping quiet because we have our children at home and they are not in school. The schools are locked and then you can't speak to them. So how are we planning to organize? First of all, I told you before I shared that we coordinate the Coalition on Girls Empowerment. That brings together almost like 40 organizations, and of which these 40 organizations are in different regions of the country. And we think, yes, the space may not be there, but we are going to continue using social media. That is the first thing in all ways. And we want to continue speaking to families. First of all, we have a program now at Women and Girl Child, where we talk to what we call mother-to-mother talk. Because recently, you know what Mama Janet said, that the parents, if she said it, I don't know, but it came out strongly on social media that parents have not been taking care of their children, their girls, and that's why there is an increase on teenage pregnancy. But on one side, we say yes, because some mothers have not really been able to settle down this during the lockdown, because some of them were in the market, some of them were working, and some of them were even digging in the chambers of other people. So they are still doing that and they can't keep home. So, and some mothers can't carry these girls to the chambers or carry them to the market. So it has been a very hard thing. So what are we doing with the mother talk? Is about going to a household and talking to the mother to be able to talk to another mother in another household, how they can really keep the girls safe and other children safe. And another way of organizing is like, yes, the government allowed us to have 20 people, and we are saying we are not going to keep quiet of that. Like next week, we are going to be in Namayumba, and what we have decided to do is we really want to talk to the parents. We want to have a dialogue with parents and the female teachers. How did the female teachers manage to keep the girls in school without getting pregnant, but when they have boys within the school? So we have that about something very, very, very important. And I think we need to follow up that charity. Where are the women leaders of the women's rights organizations? How do we come together to have a position and share with government? And how do we work with the women who are in the parliament, because I think now we have a good number in parliament. But what are they saying? We want to hear them speak out. We want to hear them share with their leaders and say, hey, these organizations have been reaching to us in different ways. They have been monitoring. They have been really following on accountability for us. And if they are closed, if their space is shrinking, then it means us as the policymakers are not also going to do the policy work. Another way trace of how we are organizing is we are continuing to form, because our mission is to make sure that we mobilize and form women to be in groups. We know very well that the parish model is coming on, and we know exactly that this model is going to work with the communities, to run a campaign and an advocacy campaign that in the committees that the government is going to form at the local levels, women should have enough space, at least 3% should be women representing. We want to see women becoming the chiefs so that they can be able to continue organizing and continue building the movement. Tracy, allow me to end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eliot. Jane, you were submitting on what, and I wanted to add, to help us add on policy work and how, like Eliot said, the parish model is moving on and it is showing up, and we are, moving into organizing at the parish level. But I also want to understand how our organizations as women, first, how our organizations are going to push for policy work in this kind of space that we find ourselves in.
Thank you so much, Tricia. Apologies to the audience, really, I dropped off, but it was beyond my making. Connection is a problem in Uganda. Well, picking on from where you stopped from, I think it is very important for us to understand the way we can be able to work, the way we can leverage on our efforts and ways of building a solidarity to be able to work in such a situation where it is not certain whether you will be able to operate tomorrow, whether your account will be allowed to be open, where if you moved out to the street to protest, you'll be allowed, where it is not certain whether from nowhere they can decide to come and register you, even when you met up with all the specifications that accrue. So for me, it is important as a movement to build solidarity, to work together, support each other, strengthen sisterhood indeed. In this way, we do not think, or we shouldn't think that partner organizations are competitors, but we look at them as allies, as partners who we need in such difficult moments in our space. So solidarity working and adapting to movement building is so important for us, leaving no one behind really. Being able to amplify voice, even for those who are voiceless, those who many of us wouldn't like to speak for example, gender expansive persons, for example, the marginalized youth and women in this country who are voiceless and no one is speaking for them. So working together for me is very important, and it can help us leverage efforts in such times where it is not certain where we are heading to. And the other way also is that mobilize the masses who we serve, by the way, because doing a multi-stakeholder kind of advocacy to enable an enabling space is something that can help us to achieve more, involving the citizens to rally behind us, to speak for us as well, and involving other actors, for example, the media, the academia, the private sector, so that Yes, we speak one voice, because whatever the NGO world does supports the work of all these sectors. So doing a multi-stakeholder involvement is very important. Also, leveraging on the international community, the support from international community to be able to give us support as well. Because I know Uganda as a country works and is under different domesticated international and regional instruments. Yes, so having an international supervision on whatever Uganda does and holding the state account international level is something that we can look at doing. It is also very important that we can also demonstrate dialogue by having spaces, creating spaces as women's rights organization, doing more work really to have dialogue with the state actors. How many of us have, for example, taken time to say, anyway, parliament, anyway, police, anyway, army, anyway, government, can we sit and have a dialogue? So for me, demonstrating dialogue as women's rights organization is very important, so that we can strengthen the working relationship, so that we can have a dialogue on enabling a free space for us to be able to speak out and operate. So yes, women's rights organizations basically will continue to require a conducive environment to operate irrespective, and this will help us definitely tackle the fear that is ongoing, to tackle the threats that are ongoing, to tackle the kind of burnout that we are having in this space. I have realized so many women's rights organizations losing staff because of living in such situations of fear, situations of sabotage, arrests, and threats from the state. So it is important that the environment is created for the women to be able to answer and contribute to the constituencies, because NGOs basically play a very pivotal role in development. Government alone cannot reach out to communities. NGOs have contributed to the education sector, the health sector, even to the overall governance sector through civic education, through building capacity of members in the community. For example, the women to take up leadership so that they can be able to influence the agenda and contribute to the general development of Uganda. So lest we allow the women's rights organizations or NGO to operate, we'll be losing out. We'll have a slow pace to development, and yet remember we have our development targets. For example, Vision 2040 that we are answerable to. We are also answerable to the Sustainable Development Goals and so many other targets. So government should work with NGOs. Partners should be responsive to support each other. Women's rights organizations should build resilience through building and strengthening solidarity. That is done through movement building and peer support. Yes, Tricia, I hope to end here for now. I'll come in later.
With one last word, 1 minute, let me invite in Evelyn. Evelyn, where do we go from here as a movement? How do we push forward? As your last remarks in 1 minute, our time is almost fast spent.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Trish, and the previous speakers. It was a very beautiful discussion. And where do we head? Where do we go as per the movement, as per our very, very important works for generations? The lady mentioned about the parish model, the parish engagement. I would want to advise NGOs. I would want to advise NGOs that wish to really, really reach the grassroots people and the end users, basically the ones we target for information. As my time as a youth leader, I know that there are structures. Okay, we may not, of course, we will push collectively, and like you had mentioned, whether people should push privately, negotiation, or collective pushback. I would really there's numbers. You can do anything with the numbers. So push collectively, but also use the structures to your advantage. The youth council structures get to the grassroots level. I can assure you, every village in this country has a female representative on their council. Every village. So for the women that are doing grassroots outreaches, put to use those because I mean, even if they shrink spaces here in Kampala or in the urban centers, surely if you're doing with the councillors, they are female representatives, for example, even if let's even leave the parliamentarians, let's leave the legislators, let's leave here back at the village level, back at the parish model. There's a representative for a woman, there are councillors who are women, there's a way we have structures in place. I would advise that the NGOs that want to really get down, do not sit just because there's a hiccup as of now. We continue to voice at every angle, and we need every voice, okay? In bringing the structures, for those that are going to do social media and YouTube like myself, we continue to do that. For those that are going to be publishing, making research, keep doing it. You don't need the office to be open for you to continue with your works. Keep doing it. This is just a mere hiccup. And I actually, I encourage you to keep pushing. I encourage you to keep researching, keep publicizing. The websites are there. Keep disseminating through the structures that you already have. I already advise there are many more that the youths, the girls, the women, there's a women's league that has to the council levels. So make use of all the structures, make use of everything. And whether we like it or not, even government understands that we must work together for the agenda 2040 to be, a reality. So for me, to everybody out there, I wish that we do not sit. I wish that we keep talking. I wish that we keep advancing the agenda that each one of us stands for. Otherwise, good luck. And maybe something I would want to caution. Women, we're always emotional, okay? We're always emotional, but we need all these players. I wouldn't want us to, attack it from an emotional angle. Let's dialogue. Let's see how best we can close all the gaps that are there. And maybe if we could, who knows, we could even be successful and we don't have any more hiccups in the near future. So that's it from me. And I do hope that people check out my channel, the YouTube channel, Start Out series. Otherwise, it was amazing to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evelyn, and thank you very much, my dear, wonderful panel, for sharing amazing insights on the subject of shrinking civic space in relation to the women's movement. As we wind up this conversation, I want to extend this, dialogue into our chat boxes, on our social media handles, and in spaces where women are organizing. One truth that we can take from here is that we need to continue to lobby for the opening up of spaces, and we need to continue to push for women involvement in the decisions that matter to the development of our country. Thank you, our viewers, for tuning in into our show. We are always happy to have you join us in these conversations. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you can be updated on the next episodes. I want to thank you very much for joining us this day. Have a good day.
Gloria.
Yes,
Gloria.
Yes.
Sorry, you are signing out, but I thought this is important, that we have to buffer our fellow women who face these things on a governance front. We call them, we reach out to them, we stand with them. An attack on one woman is an attack on me. An attack on my sister is an attack on me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.